Ilara's breath came in shallow gasps as the cold mud pressed against her skin. Her wrists ached from the tight ropes, biting into her flesh. The forest around her was alive with whispers, wind through the branches, the rustle of leaves, and strange shapes that seemed to move just at the edge of her vision. She had never felt so alone, never felt so small. Her father's face flashed in her mind. The man who had sworn to protect her, to keep her safe, had left her here, bound to die. "For your own good," he had said. But even as a child, she had known it was a lie. Now, alone in the cursed woods, she felt the truth like a knife twisting in her chest. He had betrayed her for power, for greed, for something she could not even name. Rain began to fall, fat drops that stung her face and ran down her tangled hair. The ropes cut deeper into her wrists as she struggled, trying to loosen the knots, but it was useless. The magic in these woods was old, cruel, and alive. Even the storm seemed to test her, shaking the trees violently, sending branches scraping across the ground like the fingers of some unseen creature. She tried to scream, but the forest swallowed her voice. Only the distant howl of wolves answered her. And then, just as her hope began to fade, she felt it. A movement in the shadows, deliberate and calm, unlike the wild chaos around her. A figure emerged from the storm, tall and impossibly graceful. His cloak was black as midnight, and his eyes glimmered like liquid silver in the dark. Every step he took was precise, controlled, as if the world itself bent around him. The air seemed to shift when he moved, carrying a weight of power that made the forest fall silent. "Ilara," he said, his voice deep and smooth, carrying authority but also curiosity. Her name on his lips sent a shiver through her, though she had no idea how he knew it. Who are you?" she whispered, her voice barely audible. "I am Kaelin," he replied simply, kneeling beside her. "You are not meant to die here. Not yet." She narrowed her eyes, confusion and fear warring in her chest. "Why would you care? You are a monster, a vampire," she said, her voice trembling. The words came out like an accusation, but also a plea. She wanted to fight him, even as her body screamed for safety. Kaelin's silver eyes softened, just slightly as he studied her. "I am feared, yes," he said, "and yet there are some things even I cannot ignore." "You are bound by more than ropes, child. There is darkness here that does not belong to me." He bent down carefully, cutting the ropes with a blade that glinted with faint moonlight. The ropes fell away, and Ilara rubbed her wrists, feeling the sting of the cuts and the raw ache of her confinement. Every instinct in her told her to run, to escape from the man who could so easily destroy her, and yet she could not move. Something in the way he looked at her, calm and certain, rooted her in place. "You should not be here," Kaelin said, lifting her carefully into his arms. She tried to pull away, but his grip was gentle, controlled, almost protective. "This forest is old, cruel. It tests all who enter." Her mind raced. Why would a vampire, the most feared immortal in the lands, save her? She had been told stories, tales of Kaelin's ruthlessness, of his hunger for power, of his enemies disappearing in the night. Yet here he was, carrying her away from death as though she were precious. "You saved me. Why?" she asked, her voice small. Kaelin did not answer immediately. His eyes scanned the forest, silver light reflecting off the wet leaves, searching for unseen dangers. "Because you are not like the others," he said finally. "There is something in you, something strong, something defiant, and it draws me in ways I cannot explain." Ilara's chest tightened. She did not understand what he meant. She had felt fear, despair, and anger, but never curiosity from a stranger. She had never felt anyone look at her and see strength in the same moment they saw vulnerability. The storm grew heavier as he carried her through the trees. Lightning split the sky, illuminating the forest in brief flashes. Shadows danced across their path, some almost alive, reaching out as if to pull her back. But Kalen moved with ease, a predator in his own realm, untouchable and unafraid. After what felt like hours, they emerged into a clearing. In the distance, a fortress rose from the mountainside, black stone glistening wet in the rain, windows glowing faintly with eerie light. The castle seemed to hum with power, a living thing made of shadow and stone. This is your home?" Ilara asked, fear and awe battling inside her. Kalen set her down gently, standing close so she could feel the power radiating from him. "It is where I dwell," he said, "and it is safe, for now. But you must understand, you are not out of danger yet. The darkness that bound you is tied to more than just your father's treachery. It moves beyond him, and it will come for you again." Ilara shivered. She wanted to flee, to hide. But the forest behind her was no longer the most frightening thing. The thought that her own father could betray her, could send forces to ensure her death, made her stomach twist with dread. She realized, with a sinking feeling, that her life had changed forever. Kalen studied her quietly, as if weighing every thought, every fear that crossed her mind. "There is something I must tell you," he said finally. "The curse around you, it is not natural. It binds more than your body, it binds your soul. And breaking it will not be simple. It will demand courage and trust. And something I cannot give without your consent." Ilara's heart pounded. "Trust? How can I trust anyone after—" Her voice broke as the memory of her father's betrayal overwhelmed her. She swallowed hard, fighting tears, and looked up at Kalen. His silver eyes met hers, unwavering, steady. For the first time since she had been left in the forest, she felt a spark of hope. "Why me?" she whispered. Kalen did not answer immediately. Instead, he looked toward the horizon, where lightning tore across the sky. "Because sometimes, even the immortal cannot ignore the extraordinary," he said. "And sometimes, even the damned are drawn to those who can survive the impossible." Ilara wanted to question him further, to demand answers. But the forest behind them groaned as if warning of what was coming. She felt the first real sense of fear in hours, not of Kalen, but of the darkness that had hunted her, of the powers her father had dared to summon. Kalen lifted her once more, moving toward the castle with purpose. His presence was overwhelming, both terrifying and mesmerizing. Ilara realized with a jolt that she was not just a prisoner of the forest, but now of something far older, far stronger, and far more dangerous. Yet strangely, she did not want to run. Not yet. The rain fell harder, drumming against the stones of the distant castle, as the wind carried a chill that seemed to whisper secrets. Ilara tightened her grip on the cloak Kalen had wrapped around her, feeling the heat of his body, the strength of his hands. Her heart raced, and for the first time she allowed herself a single, fragile thought. Perhaps survival was not impossible. Perhaps even in the darkest night, something extraordinary could appear. And as Kalen stepped into the shadows of his fortress, the wind carried a warning, a sound like the forest itself groaning, or perhaps the echo of her father's betrayal reaching through the storm. Ilara's eyes widened as she realized that her ordeal had only just begun. The darkness that had hunted her was patient, cunning, and far from finished. For the first time in her life, she was alive, yet she understood. Survival would demand more than courage. It would demand a connection she could not yet name, a trust she could barely imagine, and a confrontation with forces far older and darker than any human had ever known. And somewhere deep in her chest, a small, defiant flame flickered. She would not bow. Not yet. But the shadows around Kalen's castle shifted, and a whisper of danger, both magical and mortal, moved toward them in the storm. The forest's warning was clear. The true test of survival, courage, and destiny was only beginning. Ilara woke to the soft glow of the castle's torches. The stone walls of Kalen's fortress rose high around her, cold yet strangely comforting. Rain still pounded on the distant roof, echoing like a distant drum. She sat up slowly, her wrists sore, her mind foggy from the storm and fear, and realized she was alone, for now. The castle was silent except for the faint hum of magic in the air. The corridors seemed endless, twisting like a labyrinth. Every shadow flickered as if alive, but there was no immediate danger. Yet Ilara could not shake the sense that she was being watched. She had survived the forest, but this place felt different, alive in a way she could not understand. "You are awake," Kalen said, his voice smooth, echoing softly in the corridor. He stepped from the shadows, tall and imposing, his silver eyes reflecting the torchlight. Even here, in the quiet of the castle, he radiated power. Ilara could feel it in her bones. I am," she replied, her voice trembling. She tried to rise but felt the ache in her muscles from being carried and bound. Kalen moved closer, his movements deliberate, and offered his hand, not to command her but to steady her. "You must rest," he said. "Your body is weak, but your mind is sharp. It senses more than most. That is why you survived the forest. That is why you drew me to you." Ilara blinked, unsure what to make of his words. "You drew yourself to me?" she asked cautiously. Her voice carried both skepticism and a flicker of hope she did not want to admit. Kalen studied her quietly, as if weighing her very soul. "Not by choice entirely. Some things cannot be explained. But your presence, it is unlike any I have known in centuries. That is enough to make even a vampire pause." The word pause was strange to hear from him. Kalen was known across lands as unyielding, unbreakable, feared even by kings and queens. Yet here he was, speaking in words that carried a strange gentleness, a consideration she had not expected. Ilara lowered her gaze, unsure how to respond. Her father's betrayal had left her wary of anyone's intentions. She had learned to fight, to hide, to mistrust. Yet despite herself, she felt drawn to Kalen, not as a predator, but as a protector, a guide through the storm she had barely survived. "You are cautious," Kalen said. "Rightly so. The world is cruel, but the curse that follows you is older and darker than your father's deceit. You will need more than courage to face it." Ilara's heart quickened. "Curse?" she whispered. Her mind flashed back to the ropes, the shadows in the forest, the whispers she could not understand. "What do you mean? What curse?" Kalen gestured for her to follow. "Come. There are truths you must learn, and I will not lie to you. But first, you must see something." He led her through twisting corridors, past ancient tapestries depicting kings and battles long forgotten. Statues of angels, demons, and creatures of unknown origin watched silently as they passed. The air hummed with magic, a vibration she felt in her chest. It was both frightening and captivating. They entered a chamber lit by pale moonlight filtering through tall windows. In the center stood a pool of water, black as night, rippling despite the still air. Kalen gestured to it. "Look." Ilara approached cautiously. The surface of the water shimmered, revealing scenes not in the room around her, but of the forest where she had been left to die. She saw her father standing over her bound form, whispering words she could not hear. Shadows seemed to coil around him, twisting like snakes. The curse was real, she realized, a dark magic tethered to her very being. You see now, Kaelin said softly, your father did not act alone. The curse that binds you, it reaches beyond him. It feeds on fear, betrayal, and the blood of the unwilling. If it is not broken, it will claim more than your life. Ilara shivered, the reality of her situation sinking in. She had survived the forest, but this dark power her father had invoked, was far beyond anything she had faced. And yet, she could not help but notice Kaelin standing near her, strong, unyielding, his presence a strange comfort. "Can it be broken?" she asked, her voice trembling. Kaelin's silver eyes darkened. "Yes, but not easily. It will demand trust, courage, and something you may not yet know you possess. It will challenge everything you think you are, everything you believe about power, life, and love." Ilara's heart skipped. Love? She wanted to turn away, to deny it, to focus only on survival. But a small, stubborn part of her, a part that had refused to die in the forest, stirred. Perhaps survival was more than escaping death. Perhaps it was about facing the darkness and finding light in unexpected places. The days passed in a blur of lessons, caution, and tension. Kaelin taught her to sense the shadows, to move quietly, to feel the pulse of the magic that lingered in the castle. He was patient, yet firm, pushing her mind to understand what she could not see, and her spirit to endure what she had not imagined. Yet, for all his guidance, there was tension. Their interactions were charged with unspoken thoughts, fleeting touches, and long silences where their eyes met, and words were unnecessary. Kaelin was strict, commanding, and yet, in private moments, there was something softer, almost protective, that unsettled her. One evening, as lightning split the sky, Kaelin approached her in the training hall. "The curse reacts to fear," he said. "It senses doubt and hesitation. You cannot allow it to rule you." I try," Ilara whispered, wiping sweat from her brow. "I am afraid. I do not know how to face it." Kaelin studied her, his gaze intense, yet not unkind. "Courage is not the absence of fear. It is moving forward despite it. And you have already shown more courage than most humans in centuries." Ilara's cheeks flushed. Compliments, especially from Kaelin, were rare and heavy with meaning. She looked down, embarrassed, yet a warmth spread through her chest that she could not explain. Their moment was interrupted by a sudden sound, a whisper in the shadows, soft and almost imperceptible. Both turned, alert. Kaelin's posture stiffened, his senses sharpening. "You are not alone," he murmured. From the darkness emerged a figure, cloaked and silent. Ilara's heart raced, terror mingling with the strange fascination she felt toward Kaelin. He moved without hesitation, positioning himself between her and the intruder. "You should not have come here," Kaelin said, his voice low, dangerous. His silver eyes glimmered with warning. The figure hesitated, then vanished into the shadows, leaving only a faint echo of a threat. "Ilara," Kaelin said, turning to her, his expression unreadable. "The curse is not the only danger. Your father's reach, it is long, and he does not act alone. You must be ready for what comes next." Ilara swallowed hard. The forest had been only the beginning. The real danger was here, in the world of shadows, power, and ancient magic. And yet, as she looked at Kaelin, standing calm and unyielding, she felt a spark of determination. Perhaps she was not entirely helpless. Perhaps she could learn to face the darkness. That night she lay awake, thinking of the forest, her father, and Kaelin. His words echoed in her mind. Courage is moving forward despite fear. She realized that she had survived the impossible already. And survival now meant more than escaping death. It meant facing the curse, understanding Kaelin, and preparing for whatever storm her father had unleashed. and in the stillness, a subtle tension lingered between them, unspoken and undeniable. Ilara could feel it, a pull that was both frightening and strange, a connection forged in fear, trust, and the shared knowledge of danger. It was a spark she did not fully understand, but it was there, as real as the cold stone beneath her and the storm outside. As dawn broke, casting pale light across the fortress, Ilara knew one thing with certainty. The days ahead would be dangerous, filled with shadows, power, and tests she could not yet imagine. But for the first time, she also knew she was not entirely alone. And somewhere, in the depth of Kalen's fortress, a shadow moved, silent, patient, and deliberate. The warning from the forest had followed her here. The true test of trust, courage, and destiny was only beginning. The castle was quiet, but the air hummed with tension. Ilara had begun to feel the curse within her, a shadowy weight that pulsed in her chest and whispered doubts into her mind. Every night it grew stronger, and every day, Kalen guided her through ways to resist it. Yet it was not just her fear the curse fed upon. It seemed to sense hesitation, mistrust, and even the smallest doubt of the man who had saved her. Kalen watched her closely as she practiced the rituals he taught her. His silver eyes followed her movements, correcting her stance, her focus, her breathing. "You must let go of fear," he said softly. "The curse thrives on hesitation. Do not give it even a fragment of your spirit." Ilara clenched her fists, sweat running down her forehead. "I am trying," she said, her voice small but determined. I don't know how to fight something I cannot see." Kalen approached her, his shadow falling over her like a shield. "Sometimes," he said, "the strongest weapon is not strength, but trust. Trust in yourself, and trust in those who fight alongside you." Ilara flinched at the closeness. Trust. The word felt foreign. After what her father had done, trust was a luxury she had not allowed herself in years. And yet, when she looked at Kalen, standing firm and silent, with power flowing around him like water, she realized a spark of something she had never expected: safety. The days passed, and with them came more of Kalen's lessons. He taught her to sense the movements of the shadows, to anticipate danger, and to call upon her own inner strength. She was learning quickly, yet she could feel the curse tightening its grip, like icy fingers around her heart. It whispered dark promises, temptations, and fear. "You must face it," Kalen said one night, his voice low in the quiet of the training hall. Moonlight poured through the tall windows, casting long silver shadows. "You cannot hide from what is inside you. Only by confronting it can it be broken." Ilara's hands trembled. "What if I fail?" she whispered. Her voice carried both fear and shame. She did not want to fail, not now, not after surviving so much. Kalen stepped closer, placing a hand lightly on her shoulder. "Then I will not let you fall," he said. "But understand this, Ilara. I cannot break it for you. You must fight it yourself. I can guide you. But this battle is yours alone." Her heart raced. His touch, though brief, sent warmth through her that she did not expect. She looked into his silver eyes, and for the first time, she saw vulnerability hidden beneath centuries of strength. Kalen, the immortal prince feared across kingdoms, had a heart that had long forgotten softness, until now. That night, she entered the ritual chamber alone, as Kalen instructed. Candles flickered, casting tall, dancing shadows against the walls. The circle of salt glowed faintly, and ancient runes carved into the stone floor hummed with magic. Her pulse thundered in her ears as she stepped into the center. The curse whispered immediately, a cold voice brushing against her mind. "You cannot escape. You belong to the shadows. You are weak. Ilara closed her eyes, forcing herself to breathe, to center herself. She remembered Kalen's words. Courage is moving forward despite fear. I am not weak, she told herself. I am not theirs. I choose my fate. The shadows reacted violently, swirling around her like a storm. The air grew thick and cold, and the runes glowed brighter. A part of her mind screamed to flee, to collapse, to give in. But she did not. And then a presence entered her consciousness, soft yet unmistakable. Kalen. His power brushed against hers, steady, strong, guiding her without overpowering. I am here, she felt him say, not in words, but in the pull of his essence. You are not alone. Ilara opened her eyes, and for the first time she felt a strange harmony between fear and trust. The curse raged, but she stood her ground. Every whisper, every shadow, every doubt pushed against her, yet she pushed back with quiet determination. Suddenly, the ritual circle erupted in light. The shadows twisted, forming shapes of her father's making, dark, cruel, and familiar. He appeared within the illusions, smirking, the same arrogance in his eyes as when he had left her to die. You are mine, the illusion hissed. You cannot escape me or what I have done. Ilara's hands shook, but she met the vision of her father with steady eyes. I am not yours, she said, her voice ringing louder than she had imagined. I am my own. You have no power over me. The shadows recoiled, twisting violently, as if stung by her defiance. Kalen stepped closer, his own energy flowing into hers, reinforcing the circle, reinforcing her strength. Together, their wills clashed against the curse, forming a barrier of determination and trust. And then, a new shadow appeared, more terrifying than any she had seen before. A dark, demonic figure, sent by her father's pact with forces older than the kingdoms themselves. Its presence chilled her to the bone, and even Kalen tensed, silver eyes narrowing. This is not your fight alone, Kalen said firmly. You must focus, Ilara. I will not let this darkness take you. But you must reach inside yourself, find your courage, and step into the light that already exists within you. Ilara clenched her fists, drawing in a deep, steadying breath. She remembered every moment of survival. The forest, the storm, the freezing cold, the betrayal. And she realized that every moment had led her here, to this confrontation, to a choice. You will not control me, she said, louder this time. The demonic shadow shrieked, retreating as if wounded. The circle glowed brighter, the runes burning with pure, focused energy. Kalen's presence strengthened hers, guiding her but never overtaking. The battle raged for what felt like hours, though in reality, it was only minutes. Finally, with one last surge of will, Ilara stepped forward, breaking the curse's hold. The shadows dissipated, leaving only silence, the faint smell of smoke and the soft glow of the candles. She sank to her knees, exhausted, trembling, yet triumphant. Kalen knelt beside her, placing a steady hand on her back. You did it, he said softly. You faced it. You did not falter. Tears of relief blurred her vision. I could not have done it without you, she whispered. Kalen's eyes softened, a rare and fleeting warmth. No, he said. You did this. I only guided you. You found your courage, your strength. That is what matters. For a long moment they remained there, side by side, bound by unspoken respect, trust, and something deeper that neither dared name yet. The air between them pulsed with the quiet tension of two souls who had faced danger together and survived. But as dawn's first light touched the castle walls, a distant echo reached them, a whisper carried on the wind, low and deliberate, almost human, almost sinister. Ilara stiffened. Kalen's silver eyes narrowed. It seems, he said, his voice low and dangerous. "Your father's reach is longer than we thought. He is not finished, and whatever he has called, it will not give up easily." Ilara's heart raced again, a mixture of fear and resolve. She had faced the curse and survived. She had begun to trust Kaelin. But the knowledge that her father's darkness lingered, patient and cruel, made her realize that the true battle was only beginning. "You are not alone," Kaelin said, reading the unspoken thought in her eyes. "But you must be ready. The choices ahead will test you, and the consequences, they will shape more than your fate alone." Ilara nodded, determination settling over her exhaustion. She would not bow, not now, not ever. She had survived the forest, she had faced the curse. And now, with Kaelin at her side, she would face whatever came next. Her father, his dark allies, and the shadows that sought to claim her. Yet, even as she made this silent vow, she could not deny the pull she felt toward him, the strength and mystery in his presence, the silver light in his eyes, the quiet certainty that somehow their fates were intertwined. She did not yet understand what that meant, but she knew one thing. She was no longer a victim, and she was no longer alone. The castle hummed with ancient power. The storm outside faded into distant rain, and somewhere in the darkness, a new force stirred, alerted by the breaking of the curse, drawn to her newfound strength. Ilara rose slowly, her legs shaking but her spirit steady. She would face what came, and she would survive. The question was not whether she could endure. The question was what she would become, and whether Kaelin, and perhaps something more, would be there when the shadows returned. Ilara stood at the edge of the castle balcony, wind whipping her hair, rain from earlier leaving the stones slick and cold beneath her feet. The storm had passed, but the tension in the air remained. Kaelin's presence was beside her, calm, powerful, and protective. They had survived the curse, but the true danger, the one her father had sent, was coming. Her heart raced, not just with fear but with anticipation. She had learned courage. She had faced darkness within herself. Now she had to face it in the world, and Kaelin would not let her face it alone. "The time has come," he said, voice low and steady. His silver eyes gleamed with the quiet intensity of a predator ready for battle. "He will not stop until he has claimed what he tried to destroy. And we will not allow it." Ilara nodded, though her stomach fluttered with unease. Her father's betrayal had nearly ended her life once, and she knew it could do so again. But she had strength now, strength born of survival, courage, and trust, a trust she had never thought possible. She looked at Kaelin and realized that the pull she felt toward him, the bond that had grown in the shadows and trials of the castle, had become part of her strength. The gates of the castle shuddered under a force that was not natural. Shadows moved across the walls, twisting, coiling, and taking shapes of creatures born of dark magic. Ilara's father appeared at the center of the force, surrounded by a swirling mass of night, his face pale and cruel, eyes blazing with obsession. "You survived," he said, voice carrying across the courtyard like ice. "But this is not over. You belong to me, Ilara. You always have." Ilara stepped forward, heart steady, voice clear. "I belong to no one," she said. "Not to you, not to the shadows, and certainly not to fear." Kaelin appeared at her side, his cloak rippling like liquid darkness. His presence was a shield, his power flowing through the ground, the air, and even the stone beneath their feet. The night seemed to bend around him, shadows recoiling at his command. "You will not harm her," he said, silver eyes locking on Ilara's father. "Your magic is old, but you cannot break what has been strengthened by courage and trust." The battle began. Shadows leapt and twisted, forming beasts and demons that lunged at Ilara and Kaelin. She remembered Kaelin's lessons, calling upon her strength, her focus, her courage. Each movement, each breath, Each heartbeat was a declaration that she would not fall. The curse had tried to bend her mind. Now the darkness itself could not shake her. Kaelin fought with precision, striking with speed and power that seemed beyond mortal understanding. Yet he never overpowered her, never took the battle entirely on himself. Instead, he guided her, strengthened her, and let her grow into the fighter she was becoming. She realized with awe and respect that he had been teaching her not only how to survive, but how to stand as his equal in will and courage. Her father's spells collided with Kaelin's defenses, shaking the ground, bending the air, and turning the courtyard into a whirlwind of shadow and light. Elara moved through it, her fear transformed into focus. She felt the curse's remnants whispering, but this time she did not falter. She faced it head-on, drawing power from her own resolve and from the presence of Kaelin at her side. "Now, Elara," Kaelin commanded, "step forward. The final choice is yours." Elara inhaled deeply, centering herself. She could feel the darkness attempting to claim her, to break her will. But she remembered every moment she had survived. The forest, the storm, the bindings, the curse. She remembered every time Kaelin had guided her, every time she had found strength she did not know existed. She stepped forward, raising her hands, focusing on the runes of power that Kaelin had taught her to call upon. Light flowed from her, pure and bright, weaving around the shadows, burning away the darkness her father had summoned. Her father screamed in rage, his form twisting, becoming less solid as the darkness fled from the force of her will. Kaelin's hand reached hers, holding her steady, his presence amplifying hers. Together they became a single force, light and shadow, courage and power intertwined. The curse that had once gripped her chest vanished entirely, replaced by a clarity she had never known. The darkness of her father's magic dissolved, leaving him weak and mortal once more. Elara's father fell to his knees, defeated, powerless. For the first time, she saw him not as a figure of authority, but as a man consumed by his own ambition and cruelty. She did not feel triumph or vengeance, only the quiet realization that she was free. "You are done," Kaelin said, his voice carrying calm finality. "Do not follow him further. He has no power over you now." Elara lowered her hands, exhaustion and relief washing over her. She looked at Kaelin, their eyes meeting in a moment of unspoken understanding. The battle was over, but something deeper had shifted between them. Trust had turned into something stronger, a bond forged in fire, shadow, and courage. The storm cleared completely, and the first rays of dawn touched the castle's towers. Light spilled into the courtyard, illuminating the destruction of the battle and the new beginning that had emerged from it. Elara felt warmth not only from the sun, but from the presence of Kaelin beside her, a warmth that spoke of protection, partnership, and something she could not yet name. "You fought well," Kaelin said softly, stepping closer. The silver light of his eyes reflected the dawn, no longer cold and distant, but soft and alive. "You have faced the impossible and endured. You have grown stronger than even I anticipated." Elara swallowed, emotions swirling within her. "I could not have done it without you," she admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. "No," Kaelin said, shaking his head slightly. "It was always yours to do. I only guided you. And now, you are free, truly free." For the first time, Elara realized that freedom was more than survival. It was the ability to choose, to face danger and darkness, and to emerge with her spirit intact. She had been left to die, abandoned by her father, yet she had endured. She had grown. She had fought. And in that fight, she had discovered her own power, and a bond with Kaelin that would endure beyond this night. Kaelin extended his hand to her. "The choice is yours now," he said. "Stay here, with me. In the night I inhabit, or return to the world you once knew, free and unbound. Both paths are yours to claim. Ilara looked at him, her heart full of awe, gratitude, and something deeper. She had faced fear, faced betrayal, faced darkness beyond imagining, and in the process, she had learned to trust, to fight, and to love in ways she had never known. "I choose to stay," she said finally, stepping into his hand. "Not because I need you, but because I want to face what comes next with you." Kalen's eyes softened, a rare warmth breaking through the centuries of power and solitude. "Then we face it together," he said, and for the first time, his smile was more human than predator. The morning sun rose over the horizon, casting golden light over the castle and the lands beyond. Shadows fled before it, leaving the world clear and open, full of possibilities. Ilara and Kalen stood together on the balcony, looking out at a world that was no longer threatening, yet still full of mystery. Ilara realized that she was no longer the frightened girl left to die in a forest. She was a survivor, a fighter, and now a partner to someone whose power and presence had once terrified her, but now gave her courage. The bond they shared was more than trust. It was respect, understanding, and a connection born in fire and shadow. Kalen's voice broke her thoughts, soft but certain. "You were never mine to save," he said. "Yet somehow, in the process, you saved me." Ilara smiled, a quiet, peaceful smile. "And you saved me, too," she whispered. The wind carried their words across the castle, across the lands, and into the quiet sky, a declaration of courage, survival, and the bond forged in darkness and light. For the first time, Ilara felt truly alive, not bound by fear, not ruled by betrayal, and not haunted by shadows. She had faced the impossible, endured, and emerged into the light. And she would face the future with Kalen beside her, the vampire prince who had once terrified her, now standing as her partner, protector, and companion in a world of endless possibilities. Together, they turned from the balcony, ready to walk forward into the day, knowing that darkness might come again, but now they would face it together.